Hi everyone, I am here with Erik, and as I mentioned to Erik, I recently, how did I say it? Got the scorpion sting. I've been watching some of Erik's live streams where he's demonstrating the scorpion engine, and I just got that irresistible itch to basically retool and edit one of my old game idea mock-ups to hopefully work very well with the Scorpion engine. So now I'm going to show everyone who ends up watching this video and Erik how that's looking now. So Erik saw this when it was more rough around the edges. So can you see this on your screen, Erik?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so things are cleaned up quite a bit more. I've pretty much perfected the palette to where I want it to be, and the idea is that this will be a 16 color game, but put heavy use to the sprite background. And what is it called when you reuse the sprites on different vertical positions? Multiplex?
Multiplexing, yes.
Yes, so that's how we get that nice colorful background back there, and then these stone formations down at the bottom. And it will not have the player character repeated across the screen. That's just so I could test how well they stand out over the background. So that's how that's looking. So now the first step, I've already had a brief conversation in the past with Erik. I started getting some stuff ready, and can you let me know if this is correct, Erik? This is 32 pixels wide. It only uses 3 colors per scan line. Down here, it's technically 4 color. Let's see here.
Because of the black. Now, sorry, just one thing about the rock at the bottom.
Yep.
So I see you've got the same black for the back shade as for the cutout.
It looks like that right here, but it's not. Or are you talking about?
Are they actually
it's a different
colors?
Index, but let's see. It is actually 000, which it probably shouldn't be. It should be a slightly different value as well, just so that there's no confusion. Something like this.
Yep.
So I can re-export that, but it is using a different index. So it's the other trick I didn't fix yet. That's a good point. Is let me load this image in here in my pixel art program. Let's see. So this still should be that same index. So let me make sure the color bit depth is correct. Promotion is great. I can mimic the Amiga's exact color bit depth to make sure I'm not creating
excellent. Yep.
accidental colors that don't exist. But the other issue is I plan on this eventually being made. This is made out of 2 sprites, 2 3-color sprites, but the plan is that down here would use 4 sprites total. And obviously they're not repeating sprites, they would just scroll off the screen and loop around. But the trick is that these 2 sprites are one 3-color palette, and then these 2 sprites are a different 3-color palette, so that there's actually 4 colors in use. And does that make sense? So like the highlighted side, you see this dark color here is not used here, and the highlight color is instead. But that doesn't help with this. I have to pick one of those palettes. I can't have both. So I'd have to do, to do something. Yep.
So I guess it comes down to, so if you were to do it this way and you were to have, the parallax system will only work with up to 4 colors maximum, including the background color.
Per scan line, right?
Yep. The other idea you suggested where you split it into halves, where you have a different 3-color palettes on each side, I think technically that should be doable. It's not something I've actually tried to do in Scorpion, but I think I can think of some ways that it could be done.
Right. In other words, there's no way to declare it an attached sprite according to the hardware because it's using 2, unless you, right? Like it's... you'd have to manually make them separate sprites, always in the same position side by side.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so, but for now, this should fix the palette issue, because that is my goal. I do want to reuse these same 2 sprites that are used for the background up there for this one, and tell it to not repeat. Does that make sense? Because that'll free up that palette.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, so I think I get the idea. So you use of course with the parallax system you can set the colors for each scan line for that last sprite.
Yep.
So for that last bit, like you may actually have like you wouldn't actually use the sprite in the
Background.
parallax background, but
But this
you would
sets up
use
the
that to
palette
set
for
the
it.
colors. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sets up the palette,
Yep.
and then you can use those objects elsewhere. So I think Scorpion will do that. That is a little outside the box,
Yep.
but
That's me.
so far as what people have done before. But I
Right.
think we should be able to do go that way.
Yep. It's excellent. So as you could see, I designed it to make sure that the actual foreground graphics, or we would call it background graphics according to hardware, but the actual tile map graphics, they make sure that there's a several pixel vertical space here so that we have room to switch up those sprites, to no longer be needing them for the background, to switch them to appear above the tile map graphics. And so that way we could change that palette of those sprites one last time and bring it to the front to make this side of the rock formation. So far, so good.
Yep.
So
Yep. So far, so good. So I just wanted to clarify So there's no vertical scrolling in this game, right? It's all horizontal.
in this map, I'm hoping that we could end up supporting both. This map is taller than I can make it shorter for now, but it is taller. It's based on tiles. So if you want to do math, I'm an artist, but 16 pixel tile, so 16 times 16.
Oh, okay. So that's 256 tall.
Yeah, so that's a little taller than like I'm shooting for like a 200. Or what is it by default? Do you remember what the Super Nintendo
So
default height
it's
is?
it is 224 high.
Okay, so I'd like to match that if possible. And there's a
So it
HUD
looks
bar on
like
top.
you could take two tiles off the top, and you would only really lose the top of the tree.
Yep. But so
Oh, now that was with sorry. So that mock-up you've got there with the UI, I presume that's 224 in total, including the HUD at the top.
exactly.
Or
It's supposed to be so.
So Scorpion will support 224 for the game area, and then you can use up to 256 for the HUD.
Gotcha. So when I made this mock-up actually is only 200 pixels high. It's because I grew up in America
So
with
NTSC, yep.
But
Okay.
I do want to shoot for actual Super Nintendo resolution, so we can expand that. But I would like to keep, if possible, some vertical scrolling, not in the back sprites, but just in the foreground layer, like the actual tile map playable kind of a layer, just to keep the a lot of Amiga games, for obvious reasons, for performance, they're purely horizontal scrolling, and it obviously helps for performance, but at the same time it does feel kind of locked and kind of rigid, so which is fine for a lot of games and fine for shmups. But I thought in our previous conversation you had said that by default Scorpion Engine supports 8-way scrolling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So the scrolling engine is 8-way, regardless of whether you're only using it horizontal or vertically.
Right.
I guess my one worry about, the reason why I brought up whether vertical scrolling here is used or not is because we just want to make sure that those foreground rocks never overlap the background because of those palette issues.
Yeah, exactly. This would be as high as they ever get, and when you jump up, they would go lower, but they would never go up above the back layers. All right. So the question is, so I did start so let me see. I did update. Did I save it yet? Let me see. Go back to this. So I'm going to save this. I assume it's just analyzing the actual pixel colors and the palette doesn't matter, so long as it's only got Amiga compatible colors and only 3 per scan line.
Yep, that's correct. And it should tell you if any of the lines have more than 4 colors. It should tell you, and it should tell you which line you need to edit.
Okay. And then
I take it that's a full Alfred
Yes.
map, which is good.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that's what you needed, but I was just about to ask, so okay. Oops.
No, I think that will work.
Okay.
I think I might have mentioned last time that there's two general ways that you can create a Scorpion map. So
Right.
one of them is you start with the tile set, and then you draw the tile sets onto an empty map.
Mm-hmm.
But the other way is to do it backwards, where you've got in there, you've got in your image of what you want the map to look like, and it generates the tile set from that.
Right.
Making sure that it doesn't flood the memory by
Creating a billion.
having multiple copies of each. So it only includes one copy of each tile.
Okay, yeah, so that's a problem. This definitely has reuse of a bunch of tiles in the image.
Yep, so I'll only add each of those once.
So I would literally have to look for everywhere in the map that has a duplicate and delete all but one of the duplicates?
No, you won't need to do that. It takes care of that automatically. So if it sees that, this tile that I'm adding to the tile set is the same as the last,
so
the same as
does
the previous one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can import this, and it's going to figure out what the tile set is and generate the tile map.
Yes.
Okay, that's fantastic. I just saw another stray pixel. Not that it's relevant for this, but a little obsessive here. Hold on a second.
Yep. No worries.
Save image. Okay. All right, so we've got that. That's definitely what I wanted to hopefully get started on, but I did have another question, and that is regarding if you look at, let's see, I'm actually starting my animations in Spriter, but then I'm bringing them into the animation tool that I co-create called, ProMotion, and then I'm bringing them into Spriter to work on them more and to be able to work in layers. So I just created for now I want to keep memory usage as low as possible and then add to it if possible. So I've created a 3-frame run. So it just ping pongs back and forth. But you can see he has no weapon there. And I decided in this game I'm going to give the guy a big sword. So...
Okay.
Yep.
And you want to have the sword as like a separate object at least some of the time, or
yes, eventually it would be really cool. What I'm thinking right now is that as part of the gameplay mechanic and story throughout the game is basically the sword will either you'll have different swords or the sword will magically transform itself to different swords with different abilities, which is similar to our other game, Damon Claw, where it's a gauntlet that transforms itself in every level to a different gauntlet. But so eventually, yes, but for now, to just get it in there and working, I just baked the sword in to a lot of the animations, but that's the other reason I'm doing it in Spriter, so I can very quickly... Do I have it open? Yes. So so this is Spriter, and in a lot of these, like here's idle, you could see the sword as a separate object, and he's broken into body parts that allowed me to do simple animations like this idle.
Oh, yep.
But eventually, the thing I'd be worried about is I would export the animations without the sword, and then so it would be the full body, and then the sword would just be a separate blitted overlay in the game that we could swap out with other swords. Oh, is the sword disappearing? That's weird. Must have accidentally deleted it in one frame. There we go.
Right. So the long and short of it is currently there's no support for animations that are made up of multiple bobs.
Right.
Like you would have in this or in Metro Siege.
Right.
The intention is eventually, as you know, I'm sort of on the cusp of starting my Patreon.
Right.
And one of the first things I'm going to release on that is Retro Animator.
Awesome. Yep.
And once that's done, then I may look at, well, how do I integrate this with Scorpion? How can I make Scorpion import animations where there are multiple bobs that are all blitted together? With Scorpion at the moment, there are one or two projects where it sort of does something where, like, for example, you've got two different actors, or you've got multiple different actors, and they're
Always on
they're
top of
connected
each other.
together.
Yep.
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 But there are problems with that. For example, it means that you've got, because it treats them as two different actors, you've got double the AI logic, Z buffer sorting, all of that.
Right.
On top of that, it currently doesn't do what the Metro Siege engine does, where it only does a cleanup blit on once per tile.
Right.
So what I'll be able to do when I've integrated the different integrated the ability to have multiple bobs in a frame is I'll be able to say exactly which tiles need to be tidied up for this animation.
Right.
But at the moment, yeah, you would need to have two different actors, and it would mean that there was twice as much tidying up.
Right. Yeah, so that's why for now I definitely am going to just export these full frame with the sword built right in.
Yep.
And then as Scorpion develops, and like for the sword, we wouldn't necessarily need full retro animation modular support. The other thing I was thinking right now, does a Scorpion engine, I'm pretty sure it allows for per frame of animation adding like a spawning point or anchor point type thing where it would like spawn a bullet from or some stuff like that.
Yes. Admittedly, that's one part of the application I have to tidy up a bit. So it's a little bit frustrating selecting the thing, like selecting the other object and then lining it up on the different shoot directions to make sure that the origin point is exactly correct. But in principle, it does support that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's another possibility is to just for me to hand place it. But then, like you said, that's still less optimized because it's going to basically potentially have to clean up the same tile area twice because Scorpion isn't yet optimized to.
Although, having said that, you were designing these as hardware sprites, right?
No, actually, the original way, the original discussion when I showed you, I had mocked it up so that I was going to use a very sneaky trick where the character was a hybrid of a Bob and one single 3-color overlay sprite to add a bit more color. But I actually managed to retool the palette just a little bit more to give him all the colors he needs and free back up that sprite, and that allows for a lot better use of keeping all the rest of the sprites available for doing more detailed foreground parallaxing. Yep. So that's what I really wanted to. I wanted to free back up that palette and free back up. The other issue was with the Z ordering of the way Amiga sprites worked. If I needed to have a sprite for him, it really messed up. Most of the other sprites could not go in front of his sprite. So that was a really heavy price to pay, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I
can understand.
Yeah, so I reworked the palette, and thank goodness, like it took some time, but I got that 16 color palette really, really flexible and managed to work in the additional smoothness to the skin tones in that pink color. Before, those were what I needed the sprites for. And now you could see up here it's got the pink color, and right there it's got that extra skin color, which really keeps things nice and smooth looking. But so anyway, my goal is he is going to be a Bob, and I do know the downside to that is for a game like this, I don't plan on having a lot of enemies on screen or anything like that, but regardless, especially with his sword, he's a pretty big blitter object, and most of the enemies will have to be at least substantially big or close to his size to make sense. You don't want to always feel like you're fighting and defeating these tiny little toys. So, they
something like Daikatana, where you're this big beefy first person shooter hero, and then you spend the first 2 hours of the game fighting mosquitoes.
Exactly. So but that being said, I'm hoping that that we could still get this running on classic Amiga. That's the real goal, like OCS, ECS Amiga at 25 frames per second for PAL mode. And I do know that that is a price to pay if you do not design your player character to be made out of sprites. Then, which in general for a game like this, since we were using sprites so much for the back layers, you would usually want to make your character out of like two side-by-side 16 color sprites, which is only 32 pixels wide, which was a little too constrictive horizontally for what I was really going for the character design. So, but my experience with Metro Siege, which runs at a very solid 25 frames per second, that the character movement and everything still feels very smooth and responsive. And this character, while being smaller than the Metro Siege characters, is still big enough where I think it's going to still look quite smooth and responsive. So that's the test I want to,
Well, I think Rough and Tumble ran at 25 frames a second. That wasn't too bad. That was I think that was a smaller character altogether.
Yeah, that character's even smaller than this one. So if that looked smooth, then yeah, this one should look even better. And then not only that, but obviously the fact that there's going to be a ton of parallax going on and more different colors on the screen, so it'll distract you more from any lack of smoothness. That's as anyone that's ever watched any of my YouTube videos and stuff, or Bitbeam Cannon videos, my enormous pet peeve is 16-bit side-scrolling games with no parallax scrolling. That's the one thing I think that is like falls short of real AAA quality on an otherwise brilliantly made game. Rough and Tumble is definitely one of the like really high quality, really good pixel art kind of side platformer action games on Amiga. I mean, obviously there's gorgeous games like Shadow of the Beast, but gameplay wise, not so much. But anyway, not to digress too much, I don't want to eat up too much of your time, but anyway, so the other question was regarding the animations. Should I just export the frames for all of these animations, each one individually trimmed? I know it'll give me extra work aligning them in Scorpion Engine.
No, if you've got a lot of like empty alpha space around the characters, it doesn't matter, because Scorpion does do trim to edge.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
So when it does the export, it will work out how many lines on each of the four sides it can trim off before it exports it.
So if I were to export all of them with the same size box, even though it would have a ton of alpha clear pixels around most frames, the benefit is when I'm importing it into Scorpion in the first place, the anchor point or hotspot would be exactly in the same place for all of them, so I wouldn't have to reposition all of my frames super carefully. Is that the case?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that'll save me a bit of time.
It does display the offset in the animation editor in Scorpion, so you can just make sure that the numbers line up on all of them.
Right. So
for example.
Yeah, so like if I make sure that it's right here on the first frame of the idle animation and just copy those numbers, it'll be exactly right if I export all of the frames of all the animations with the same amount of trim, which you can do in Spriter like this. So I could just edit, and I can make it as big as I want to safely cover any animation. And then when I export that, they'll all be trimmed the exact same way. So that'll be fantastic. All right. File save. And then the other trick, which we won't get into today, is the other thing to discuss. Where is it? What was it going to be? I just lost my train of thought. 1 second. Let's see. The sprites, I'm assuming, are pretty straightforward. I need to set up the sprite palette. I made an image. I don't know if that's necessary in my folder called level 1 palette, but
Yeah.
it's not perfect yet. Yeah.
Well, Scorpion does use. So when you create a new project, there's a file called project_palette,
Okay.
and that is an index PNG. So
Oh, great. Okay.
assuming you've got an index PNG there, you should be able to just paste that over top of the existing project palette, and then you'll already have your palette set up ready to go.
Okay, fantastic. And when you say paste it over, do you mean, do I need to
Oh, the
just...
file.
Right, right. Okay. So same exact file name and it's palette underscore PNG, you said? Or...
Project_palette. You'll see it
Okay.
when you've created
Okay.
a Scorpion project.
Okay, well, that's straightforward. And that would include the first 16 colors being for the actual tile map graphics and bobs, and then the second set of 16 would be the sprite palette, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the other
Correct.
question I had was, and do I need to bother, does it matter what colors these transparent sprite indexes have in them?
No, it doesn't really matter if you're not using them for 16 color
Right, okay.
sprites.
All right, good to know. Yep.
It might be a good it might be a good idea to set them to colors that you're definitely not using elsewhere.
Right, I did
So,
that, yep.
Yep. Okay. Oh, it's good.
Yeah, that's a super vivid green. That's the equivalent green to programmer pink. It's such a bright color,
Yep.
almost no one would ever use it. And I'm not using it anywhere else. So let's see. Oh yeah, and the other question I had was, so I understand when it comes to the background and how it analyzes
Yep.
it and creates a copper list.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the only copper color changes that you can have going on, or can you actually set up other copper list for specific color indices that happen simultaneously?
No, at the moment, you've only really got two options for copper in game. So one is the standard, like the rainbow, where you don't have a sprite parallax, you just have a background rainbow.
Right. Okay.
The other one is this, where you can set color indexes 0, 29, 30, and 31, which are the background and the three colors for the last two sprites.
Mm-hmm.
But those are currently the only options for per line.
Yep, that's what this is based on. It's not using any other copper, so I'm perfectly happy with that. And obviously, adding additional copper would potentially adversely affect performance. I had just wondered because I had seen in one of, actually, I don't think it was one of your live streams. I think it was a live stream by the gentleman who's making that Metroidvania style game that runs on
would that be
Amigas.
Mixel?
Yes. I can't remember the name of his game at the moment. It's
Creeping Me Out.
there you go, Creeping Me Out. Yes. So I think it's because he's using half bright mode. He's kind of getting bonus additional kind of copper gradients. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I never fully understood what he's managed to do because I haven't done a lot of experiments with
half bright mode,
extra half bright myself, especially in combination with sprites.
Yep.
But it seems like he's able to use the nature of extra half bright to do odd transparency effects and things.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I do understand quite a bit of that just from my past experience with extra half bright mode in graphics programs. So I know it's like the Amiga's kind of cheating. It didn't have the full power to give you a whole other set, OCS Amigas, of another 32 distinct RGB value color indices. So to give you those extra 32 colors, it's doing some kind of just math on the fly to make them half as bright as the, color 0, I guess, would be, color 33. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you point to index 33, it's actually just color 0 and then half as bright. So apparently, I didn't know this, but even if you use the copper to change that color 0 at a scan line, and then you display color 33, it's going to be affected by the same copper change, but it's going to be half as bright as well. So it's kind of cool. You're getting two copper changes or two gradients or rainbows for the price of one. At least as far as setup. I have no idea what that does to the performance, but apparently it didn't matter too much on an AGA Amiga, and this game is still running fine. But yeah, it's cool to discover those kind of accidental, like, bonus things that you get out of some of the Amiga's cool features. But anyway, so this is the graphics I have so far. Do you have the time? Do you want to guide me through starting a new Scorpion project and maybe just getting the map in there and getting the background sprite layer in there, and then we can, maybe some other day go the next step and start to get the character in after I've had a chance to export them and get the parallax working fully correct with the different, however far you want to go. I don't know how much time you have tonight.
I think we can make a start on it.
Okay, cool.
The first thing I've noticed is you've got an older version of Scorpion.
Oh, okay. Well, I can definitely update that. And a very nice new icon by John Takiris. All right, new Scorpion project, I assume?
Yep.
And then...
So you want to make a folder somewhere?
Yeah, I'll just keep it there for now, so I'll just create a new folder. And we'll call it, let's see, Scorpion game, very creative. Alright, and then we'll just keep that project, we'll keep it called that for now. So like this?
Yep, that is totally fine.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, I guess that would be the first thing you want to do is you'll want to switch it to
16 color.
16 color mode. I guess the next thing we want to do is we'll get that palette sorted out.
Mm.
So if you click Open Folder on near the top left.
Top left, open folder. That's convenient. Okay, here we go. There's the project
And then,
you mentioned.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the standard palette used by Scorpion.
Right. And does it
designed
matter?
by Indiska.
Now, does it matter what the image looks like, or is it just literally analyzing the palette in an indexed PNG file?
It ignores all of the pixels. It only takes into account the palette.
Okay, great. So if I rename the file I made, let's see, where's that folder? Did I close that? Yeah, I must have closed that folder. Let me see. Somewhere on my desktop, I thought. Scorpion, here it is. So if I just rename this, theoretically.
Yep. And then
that one.
you paste it over top.
Yep.
And if you go back to Scorpion now, you should see that the palette is updated.
Yep, sure have. Now, I did mention I need to fix the sprite palette a little later.
Yep.
That's
you can edit that palette directly from there if you need to.
Right, okay.
Anyway, so that's step one. I guess step two is you want to bring your map in.
Mm-hmm.
So you see you've got a bunch of tabs along the top. Maps will be the one that you want to start with. And then you've got some helpers on the right there. So generate map from PNG will be the one that you want.
All right, so now I should just put that map folder into this folder, right?
No, you don't need to import from the Scorpion folder. You can import from elsewhere.
Okay.
You do need to save into the Scorpion folder,
Makes
but
sense.
you can import from anywhere else.
Let's see, Scorpion graphics. Is this?
And then,
this is where to save to. Okay. Scorpion
Yep.
game seems right.
So, yeah, I guess just change it to map 1 or something like that.
Map 1. Save.
Okay, so if you click on map 1, you should see it there.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
Okay, and if you click on tile set, you should see the tile set it's generated. Yep.
Very cool.
Well, and you see it has only added each tile once.
Very, very nice.
Yep.
All right, excellent.
Okay, so should we see if we can actually display it in the game?
Yes.
So go to Code, or the Code tab.
Yep.
And then you want the code block at the very top, Startup.
Okay, do I just double click or just click once?
Just click once, and then you see the plus button next to command. So those two plus buttons, one at the bottom, so you want to add a new command.
Yep.
And then from the category, you want to you want the level category.
Where's categories? Oh, is here?
No, on the right, where it says command and then category. So that's a drop down. So where it says base, category base, click level.
Okay.
And then it's already on load level, so you just, I guess, may as well choose from that drop down.
This one here? Map
yep.
1.
And then map 1. So got a very simple
nice
code that just says load map 1.
Yep.
So that would be the starting point. If you want to try that, so you go to project and then we'll check the emulation settings. So it's set up to run on Amiga 1200. You could leave it there, or you could switch that to A500 if you want.
Let's see. Okay.
All right. Well, let's give that a go. So just run in WinUAE.
Yeah.
It should ask you where your WinUAE folder is. I assume you've got it set up somewhere.
Yep. If I can remember where the heck it is, that's a question. Let's see. See. Is it here? Oh, actually, I think I remember now. Apps. Amiga files. There we go.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
I love how Scorpion configures the sort of settings for giving it the file, you know what I mean, like setting up the drive or whatever, and the Amiga settings. It's really elegant. It was very painless to set it up to use the emulator. Yep. There it is.
Yep, there's your level.
Very nice. Okay.
Okay.
So it's, what is it, F12 to get my, yep. Is there an other way, more elegant way than F12 to quit out of the emulation when you're ready to go back into Scorpion? Not that F12 is hard, but...
Yeah, I normally, like, you just click on you can normally just click the close button at the top right, I think.
Okay, I think
as long as your mouse isn't locked to the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess you may as well quit from there then.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It works. Yep. It's definitely not difficult. I'm just wondering. All right, cool. Got it.
Okay,
and
so...
can we get into Parallax? I'm super excited to get that in.
Absolutely. We'll see if see how it works. So if you click on panels. Sorry, maps. Maps is what I meant.
Okay.
Then you've got generate parallax from.
Yeah, it's 32.
You want a 32 wide, I assume.
Yep.
Okay.
And then let's get back to that desktop folder. Scorpion graphics and the shorter one. I noticed most of the kind of background layers in Amigo the Fox were 208 tall, so that's what I did for this one. But is there a specific limit vertically, or
no? There isn't a specific limit vertically. I think I just had it as 208 because the game screen was 208.
Right, gotcha. Right.
But I think the limit will be 224, which is the same as the screen.
Right.
Anyway, so you want to save it just there in Scorpion Game.
Okay. I'll just change the name a little bit. That works. BG1 Parallax.
Yep.
All right.
Click save. Hopefully it won't have any errors, which it hasn't. Okay, so you've generated a parallax file, but you still need to connect it to that map. So you see where it says set parallax?
No, over here
It's
somewhere.
near the middle. Near the middle. It should say
Ah,
set
there we
parallax.
go.
Yeah. Yep. And
Here it
then,
is.
yep, that's the one. And just click open on that.
Ooh, very nice.
And if you just want to try, I guess before we go any further, just try running it in game. Just see what it looks like.
Right, project run.
I do normally have, like when I'm developing something, I normally have it set as like an Amiga 4000 or
So
an
it loads
Amiga
faster.
1200 with a bunch
Yeah.
of fast RAM. Yeah, just so that the loading times are super quick.
Yep, that makes sense.
Even if it's a game that's designed with the Amiga
Right.
500 in
Because you
mind.
can always switch back periodically to a weaker Amiga to benchmark it and make sure it runs well on the weaker Amiga.
Hmm.
But yeah, looking pretty. All right, so far so good.
Yep.
And it kept the black border just fine, which is fantastic.
Yep.
Although I think you said it automatically does that even if you're using 4 colors per scan line.
Yeah, so it uses what I call a fake border blank. So the with ECS Amigas and AJ Amigas is actually a hardware setting to say always keep the border black even when you're doing copper stuff. But I've used the copper to fake that, so no matter what Amiga you're on, the background is always going to look the same.
Nice. So, is there a performance hit with that? Is there any reason to not use the fourth color for copper changes?
So yeah, there is going to be a little bit of a with that extra command per scan line, there's going to be a bit more memory usage. There's going to be a bit more DMA usage. So early versions of Scorpion, I think I had the option, so you could say that if you were on a higher level Amiga, then don't generate those extra copper instructions, just use the hardware border blanking.
Right.
But I think that still had a bit of an inconsistent look to it. Like, it would, you would get this weird thing where it was either the borders or maybe it was above and below the game screen. There would be a darker black than anything set to black.
Yep.
It's and I wasn't quite sure why that was, but for visual consistency across every platform, I've got it so that it does it all the same way.
Right. Okay. Let's see here. Yep.
Sorry. The other thing is, if your color is black anyway, then it doesn't add. I think it doesn't add it to the copper list, so it knows that.
Oh, nice.
Okay,
yeah.
well this line is black, so it doesn't need to change the background color, so
Nice.
it doesn't add it.
Fantastic. All right, so fire 2 to jump. Not that there's a character yet, but I just noticed that. So, and then let's see. It's going to take me a little longer, but if you want to remind me how to set up the parallax for the background sprite layer. I remember it's a text file. Was that automatically generated?
So if you go to Maps, and then you've got to edit parallax data. So it should ask you to edit it in whatever spreadsheet program you use. I think I use OpenOffice.
Okay.
I
do have
but
Office,
if you've got MS Office, hopefully it should just all work the same. Oh, yeah, so you've also got OpenOffice.
Very nice.
And just the defaults would be fine. It looks like it set it there.
All right. Nice.
So do you want me to just quickly go through what each of them mean?
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Okay. So slice line is the line of the screen where you want to create a slice where the parallax works differently to the previous line.
Right, so we would be talking about a vertical coordinate starting with
Yes.
0 up at the top, I assume?
Yes, a 0. Normally, I try to avoid putting anything on index 0 just because there are a few other copper moves to do with setting up the screen on the very first line.
Yep.
So sometimes you can have issues, but it is there. You can put it on 0 if you really need to. Otherwise, put it on line 1 will be fine for your first slice.
Yep. Okay. So I'm not
or
going
even
to,
further down.
I'm not going to do this right now during this session, but because
Yep.
it's going to take me some time to figure out the coordinates, so let's just get back
Yep.
to reviewing what this does. Initial offset. Okay, this, to me, this makes it sound like the initial X or horizontal offset to start it at.
Yeah, that's basically it. So that's the it's been a little while since I've actually played with that that field, but I think that is just the offset from
Yeah, because
where
it's basic.
from the left edge.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. So it's looping
so
around
that should be a
horizontally. Yeah. Okay.
So that should be a number between 0 and 31
That
because
makes
it's
sense.
a 32 wide pattern.
Just so people that end up watching this make sure it's clear. So, like, if we did an offset of 16, it would be something like this. So it would basically loop it around like this. We've shifted it over 16, and it loops infinitely. So if you loop it off of one edge, the other edge follows suit. So it's always a seamless scroll. But that way, your graphics, when you're starting off, if you don't have the ability to do the offset, it might start looking too lined up with everything, depending on how your graphics are designed. So I'm assuming that's why you allow for an initial offset, which is very nice. All right, cool. So let's scroll left. Okay, scroll left speed.
So,
that makes sense.
So this is the scroll speed is a concept that sometimes confuses people. But basically, you would typically have something like scroll speed left is -1, scroll idle speed is 0, and scroll's right speed is 1. And that basically says, well, if you or like like half a pixel, like so like -0.5, depending on exactly how fast you want to scroll. But basically, the scroll left speed means the speed that the parallax scrolls at when the camera is moving left. And then you've got how fast you want it to scroll when the camera is not moving at all. So typically you would want that as 0.
Right.
You wouldn't always want it. Well, you wouldn't want it as 0 if you were doing a game like a scrolling shooter.
Yeah. Or
So,
like
on a
I
scrolling-
could theoretically have the clouds slowly scrolling on their own, and would they could I set both things so they're slowly scrolling
absolutely,
to the
yeah.
left or right?
So-
Okay. That's
So you
great.
could make it so that there is a little bit of scroll all the time,
Right.
which is amplified by the amount that you're actually moving the camera.
Fantastic. So I could have my clouds slowly, gently scrolling on their own and still also getting affected when you walk left or right.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think I did that exact thing on Amigo the Fox. There's a level that's sort of implied to be quite high up because at the bottom of the screen there are foreground clouds.
Right.
And the foreground clouds are always scrolling. In fact, there's sort of an effect where it looks like, because there's foreground clouds and background clouds, so it looks like the clouds are surrounding the player, sort of like you're standing in the middle of a storm.
Right, so like the
And
foreground clouds might be going this way, but the background clouds are going the opposite or something like that? Or vice
so
versa?
So it looks like it's turning in a circle.
Yep.
And that effect, I think, is amplified by your actual movement speed.
Right. Very cool. All right. So the next one is foreground. So that would put it in on top of the tile map graphics.
So that changes the priority of bit planes sprites so that anything below that line will become above the bitplane graphics.
Fantastic. And so, yeah, so that's not just obviously the tile map graphics, that's any Bob. So in this case, the player and every background graphic, which includes the character and any enemies I make, since I'm only using sprites in this game for the far background and the extreme foreground.
Yep.
All right, cool. Is Cloud. This is interesting.
So Cloud is what I call... it's an object that you have in the parallax that doesn't repeat.
Right. And does that make it automatically loop when it goes off the side of the screen?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it does.
That's really nice.
So it's typically used in games for example, for clouds.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's used for things like castles and islands and just things that are way in the background that scroll a little bit.
Yeah, I could actually use it theoretically for these things if I weren't doing that trick to make them 4-color and I only had one of them. I could declare a cloud and it would keep looping in front of the screen.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool. Okay.
All right. So with so most of those things are repeated. So you've got the initial cloud offset.
So that's the horizontal position.
Yeah.
Just in general on the whole screen. Is that the case, or is it still it can't be based on 32? So it's
so that's something like out of 256.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. So the cloud, what the cloud anim is about is, actually, do you want to open that parallax image that it generated?
Just going to do that because I think I know what you're about to say, and that's really awesome. Man, Scorpion is really impressive. You're doing a fantastic job. So let me turn a grid on at 32 pixels wide to make it easier to see. Show grid. That didn't help at all. Where's the grid? There we go. Okay.
Okay, so if you want to scroll down to your foreground rocks, so in theory you could, if those were set up as clouds, you could then animate them on each of those frames.
Right. So it could have up to 32 frames of animation that are basically looping as it's scrolling off the screen, and then it automatically repeats. It automatically loops back around to the other side of the screen. So you never kind of run out of clouds. That's really cool.
The first time I used it, I did a parallax demo called Flighty Fox, which is basically Flappy Bird.
Right.
And there's an island in the background which is configured as a cloud, but it's a very subtle effect. It has sort of a shimmering water in front of it.
Right. Yep. Okay, very cool. So yeah, I was just writing numbers on it so people understood, like, each of those can be a frame of an animation. So where's the cloud anim left, cloud anim idle, cloud. So while it's scrolling to the left, numerically, what does this do? Does it tell it a sequence of frames, or just the first frame of a sequence, or?
So if you were to have that as -1, it would say, well, when I've moved the camera left by 1 pixel, then move the frame backwards by 1.
Okay. So it's tied in with scrolling. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So you could have your clouds animated based on how fast you're moving, or you could just, if you had all of those the same value, so you had all of those set to 1, the left set to 1, the idle set to 1, and the right set to 1, then it's going to animate consistently
through all,
no matter what
frames.
your camera is doing.
All right, very cool.
Thank you.
All right. Yep.
So the left frame and right frame, I haven't done a lot with them in the past, except for, well, the only place I've actually used them is, again, in Amigo the Fox. I use them for the on-screen UI. So Amigo the Fox has a console-like user interface where the number of lives and your score overlaps the or is in the foreground over top of the background graphics rather than being on a panel.
Right.
And the way it does that is the lives are basically set up like a cloud, but instead of the animation being controlled by the camera movement, the animation is controlled by what we set the left frame and right frame to. So we would connect those to variables.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm just loading that in so you can show.
Yep. So that's the so that's the base parallax of what I use to generate the wider one.
Yep. All right. Yeah.
And I think yep. So just yep, that one will be maybe not the temp one, the next one next to it. I'm not sure why there's a temp one.
Here it is. Level 3 parallax should do. Okay.
Yeah, and so you can see that I'm controlling the left and right frame to show how many lives they've got and how much food they've got.
Yeah, that's so cool.
This was the level I was talking about before, where there's sort of a background layer of cloud and a foreground layer of cloud, and they animate they scroll in opposite directions. So it looks like the player is standing in the eye of a storm.
Right. Yep. Very cool. All right. Let's get back to this. So, how much time do you have any time left for this session? I was just thinking, it's obviously not very pretty at the moment, but if you have the time for it, it would be cool to get this on the top of the screen over everything else.
Yeah, okay. Well, that might be a good thing to finish on then.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you want to crop that out?
Yep, doing that now.
And you're going to want it to be 256 wide. I assume it is already?
256 by 22 pixels high. Yep. Is that okay?
Yeah, yep, that's perfect. So if I'm going to paste that into a...
let's see. I'll just put it here for now. HUD.
Yep. Probably save it in the Scorpion folder.
Yeah, I'm going to put it there now. I just didn't want to fish through the...
because you got to...
It'll be quicker to get to it this way. Or at least I think so. Is it in editor? Yep, Scorpion game. And then just drag it in here. Oops.
Yes.
All right, so let's put HUD in here.
There's one other thing that you may need to do. Is that I take it that isn't an indexed PNG.
That's a good question. I just I don't know. I saved it as a brush, so it might or might not be.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
If it isn't, it is. Okay. That's fine. So the only reason I bring that up is because the base of a panel has to be an indexed PNG because panels have their own palettes.
Okay, cool. But this is 256 color. Is it going to just ignore the...
Yeah, it will ignore
colors?
Everything beyond your bitplane settings. So with panels, you don't have to use the project bitplane settings. You can have more or less depending on whether you want a really colorful panel or you just want the smallest number of colors just to save as much memory as you can.
Right. Remove unused. There we go. Colors. Remove unused. Compact. There we go.
So how many colors do you actually have now?
Less than 16.
That looks like... but more than 8 though, so you may as well have it as 4-bit planes.
Yep.
So if you're going to save that.
Save image.
Yep.
Right, cool. And right,
now, so if you go back in, so if you go to panels, and you might want to make a new one.
And HUD.
Yep.
Very
And then I
straightforward.
guess just just call it HUD, or may as well just call it HUD.
Yeah. Save. Fantastic.
Go. Now it's still by default it's set to 32 colors, so you may as well want to change that to 16 colors.
Yep.
And then
overlaps game.
now that's so overlaps game is a special setting for, it's usually for panels that, or for talk pads where you don't want to show them all the time.
Oh, okay.
So
by talkpad, you mean like a dialogue box that appears when people are talking? Oh, very cool.
Yep.
Very
so,
nice.
Before, so that's a fairly new feature, the overlaps game. Before I added that in, you would have this problem where if you had a panel on the top, it would basically push the entire game down and then,
gotcha.
Display text on the top. But that's overlaps game has limited support because I worked out it's not going to be compatible with parallax because everything's configured to be on certain lines, and then if you delete a bunch of those lines at the top by having a panel overlap it, then it throws it all off.
Everything. Yeah. Okay.
But since this is a panel that you would have all the time, you wouldn't have it turning on and off.
Correct.
Then it's absolutely fine to have it like that. So what you want to do next is to actually load it into the game. If you go back to your code tab.
Code. Okay.
And then let's add a new line. Yep. And then go to the category you want as display.
All right. So category.
Display is near the top.
How does that alphabet work again? Oh, no, it's not alphabetical. Okay. Display.
No, sorry.
No problem. No problem.
Yep. So you want to change the... Oh, sorry. So it's defaulted to set panel, but you want to set the top panel. So you've got panel... Yeah, that's the correct place. If you go panel top.
Panel... There it is.
Yep. And then where it says none, you want to change that to... From your drop-down, choose your HUD.
Nice.
And you may want to drag that line to the top because you'll want to load your HUD before you load your level.
Okay.
And so that is ready to go now if you want to give it another test.
Just out of curiosity, disable, is that just like you can temporarily turn it on or off? For testing purposes or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So that can be quite useful for... like quite often when you're making a game, you might think, actually, instead of coding it this way, I'll try coding it another way.
Right.
But I don't want to get rid of what I've already done just in case my new idea doesn't work.
Or you just added several things and you've got a new bug, and this way you could go, maybe it's this line that's causing the bug, and then you disable it and run your game, and if your bug's gone, you know you're right. And that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very cool.
Or you can also use it for things like, say if you've got your game starts and you've got a whole bunch of logos that you show and they take like 5 seconds each. But you want to quickly test your game, so you could turn off some or all of those. So
it goes right to the game, so you could test faster while you're iterating and testing.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay, so should I run it and see what it looks like?
Yep.
All right, run. All right, and assuming this works, then I think this is a good place to end for tonight. After this works, and then next time we could. Get the character in and get it scrolling left and right. And by then I'll have set up that parallax file so that the clouds and everything and the layers will be scrolling appropriately.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
Is it because index 0 on that image is... Oh, there it is. It just took a long time to load.
Okay, yeah. That would be the causes because index 0 on the image would not be black.
Yeah.
If you edit that palette and then change it to black, that should be fine.
I also see a weird offset.
Now that is interesting. We can fix it though. So if you want to close it, Um, so you see in this panel, it says 32 pixels right on the graphics there.
Yes. Where is
So, so under
32
graphics, it
pixels
says
right.
32 pixels right. You want to leave that as it is, but then add 32 pixels onto
The image?
if you go into the panels.
Oh, interesting. So panels.
And then it should say center adjust pix. Yes, set that to 32.
32.
Yep. So if you run it now.
All right. Why don't I, just to speed things up, go set this to be an A1200?
Yep. And then put it like 8 mega fast RAM in.
Would that be 8, or would this be, what number do I?
Oh, 8 is fine.
Oh, 8?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's.
Don't be 8K.
I probably should add something to say megabytes.
This is megs,
but yeah,
yeah.
so that is 8 megabytes.
Okay, so run. There, it's aligned. I just need to make the color 0 black.
Mm.
I do notice also that it seems like 2 or so black pixels under the HUD and before. Like there's one background color and then there's like 2 other pixels. Is that just the nature of?
So the panel and the game display underneath it are completely separate copper lists.
Mm-hmm.
There's a default gap of 4 pixels.
Okay.
But and that's sort of a safe default. So most combinations of games where most combinations of colors, that will be fine.
All right.
You may decide that actually I can get away with less.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that you can change in code blocks to say, actually, I want my panel gap to only be, 3 or even 2.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't see why it should be an issue leaving it at the 4, but maybe once it's running, I'll just do a quick test and see if it runs fine at 2 without any... I guess the risk would be color glitches or something like that. Like if the copper doesn't have enough time to fully adjust the palette.
Yeah, absolutely. It could also interfere with it could also conceivably interfere with the parallax.
Right, that makes sense. That's all the copper list, right? So whatever it didn't have time to finish.
Yep.
Okay.
You may also find that you could possibly get away with a smaller gap if you had the panel at the bottom. Possibly.
Oh, interesting.
Because the bottom panel wouldn't have all of that parallax, and you could maybe get, like, if you're not, you could maybe get away with putting it in 8-color mode if you're able to reduce the colors that are actually used.
Yeah, almost certainly, but let's see. Just swap that, and then remap, resave this.
So, what is this promotion? Is this designed specifically for pixel art?
Yes,
or is it general art?
It is amazing. Promotion, the full name is Promotion NG, which I think means next generation. I think the creator, Jan Zimmerman, maybe he was a Star Trek fan. But I've known him for well over a decade, and I've been using Promotion back when a much, much older version. And he's a great developer. It's a pixel art specific program based very heavily on Deluxe Paint, the Deluxe Paint series for Amiga, and then Brilliance for Amiga. And in fact, I've been giving him feedback and requesting features over the years for over a decade. And it is one of the secrets to my success as a pixel artist. To toot my own horn, but I'm actually just reporting what all of the producers and art directors have said over the decades. I'm known in the industry to be one of the fastest pixel artists, and a big part of it is just a lot of other artists don't know how amazing Promotion is once you get used to the workflow. It is extremely powerful, extremely fast, and people that are more used to things like Deluxe Paint will adapt to it much more quickly than they would the newer pixel art programs like A Sprite or whatever it's called, which is very popular. But yeah, this is much more based on Deluxe Paint and stuff like that. But yeah, it's fantastic.
I was impressed that you could drag the color on the palette around without messing up the actual image, so it knew to update the indexes of everything.
Yeah, you can actually set it to do that or not, like when you want to, quite easily. So sometimes you want it, like sometimes you want to move your indexes and not have it update because you actually want to swap what color the indexes are using in the image. But usually you want to organize your palette and you want the thing remapped, and you can set it to automatically remap as you drag your colors around, and you could drag multiple, like for example, I could grab entire chunks like this and then move it around.
Oh, wow.
And it'll automatically shuffle it and stuff like that. And then, yeah, it's very cool. And then undo, and there's all kinds of, like I said, it's just an amazing program. But anyway, and I actually, if you go to Cosmigo.com, which is their website, there is a free version to try, which has some features limited, but it's still quite usable. And most of the official tutorial videos I made. So you can learn kind of my trick of, one of the big reasons I'm one of the fastest pixel artists in the industry. A fantastic tool. But anyway, so...
I'll have to look into it. I mean, I'm not an artist myself, but for Scorpion projects, I occasionally do need to make small edits or change palettes and things. And I've standardized on Paint Shop Pro for that stuff. But, for example, the editing the palettes is always a pain because, as soon as I change a color, it's changed, it hasn't remapped. So... I need to save the file with the palette and then reopen the original file to get the graph to remap everything. Right.
While you were saying that, and it did register, so not just to change the subject immediately, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I just had a realization looking at the game running. In order to not have that black, let's get this out of the way. Not that black not there. I do need to change color 0 down there anyway. So it's good that Scorpion will automatically bring the border back to black because I need to make this a decent color. Oh, the other thing though is that this background is scrolled lower, so maybe I won't need to actually, come to think of it. Because this should be, like once the character's there and the camera is following the character, the goal would be that the bushes here is where this would be, so you actually would not see the black. But if that were the case, then that would be the trick, is to use all 4 colors down here, or change black to be a nice background color so it doesn't become a ridiculous drastic pitch black here in the background. Okay. But yeah, I will get the rest of the graphics done. I will probably make, just to kind of benchmark and start to get some gameplay functionality in. I'll make a placeholder enemy to blow up and just to get some objects on screen and collision detection. But the main focus will be definitely next time, once you have the time to kind of hold my hand and guide me through, I'll have this parallax ready, and then we can get the guy in there walking around and jumping.
That sounds good.
Awesome. Very cool. Very exciting. And very easy to use. Fantastic work so far in the Scorpion, and thanks so much for putting all this work into making such an amazing authoring tool.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to making more progress on this. Also looking forward to being able to share this video, because I think this is going to be a helpful video for a lot of people just wanting to get started with Scorpion.
All right. Very cool.